Hey, everybody, you asked and I'm listening. The Delphi case, Richard Allen's case, has had an appeal filed just a matter of days ago. And I know a lot of you have been asking me to look into it. And so today I decided to read the appeal. And oh my God, we have to look at this a little bit. This is a bonus rant. And I know a lot of you are well aware of the Delphi case and Richard Allen's case. And I'm very, very late to the party. I'm going to explain why I'm late to the party, why I've ignored it until this point, and why this is right in the wheelhouse of the devil's advocates. You've got narrow-sighted investigation. Once they narrowed down on the suspects, they went hell bent on it. Exculpatory information being kept from the jury to make a wrongful conviction. All the elements for a wrongful conviction line up in Richard Allen's case. And now we have the appeal, and that appeal has massive teeth. Massive teeth. The devil's in the details. Let's get into this one on a bonus rant today. Now, before we get too far into this, pay attention. This is not a brand new case that I'm on or an additional case or a replacement case. I'm simply testing to see whether or not my audience is interested in my take on a case that's been around for a very, very long time. I am late to the game. There's a lot of things I don't know that you know. You are way more educated on this case than I am, but some of you still were saying, hey, devil's advocates, I'd really like you to take a look at this case. And so when I saw the appeal and I read the 113-page appeal, I was like, oh my God, this case is going to drive me bonkers. So today I decided I'd share with you some of my initial thoughts, and I'm going to do my best to focus on the appeal. But the problem I have coming late in the game is I don't know what you already know. I don't know how much of the appealable options that are on here are the appeals argument. I don't know how much of the appeals argument is things that you've all heard for years now, and I'm coming in late. I'm hearing some of these things in the appeal for the very first time. And so for me, it's brand new and it's shocking, and maybe it's not shocking to you. So bear with me when I give you my first time reaction to the appeals in this case. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I felt about the case from the beginning, and I'm going to tell you what I think about the appeal. Before we get too far, again, like, subscribe to this channel. We believe in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. I have a massive, massive problem with wrongful convictions. This case is shaping up to be a massive wrongful conviction. I don't know. Again, I'm new to the case relatively. I did see a lot of the videos that you guys saw on the bridge guy and the initial killing and some of the theories that were coming out. And to be honest with you, I would have made some of the mistakes that the investigators made as well because of my own mental blinders. But now that I read the appeal, I'm thinking, wow, even I could have made some of these mistakes. And I want to share that with you today. So I'm going to bring up on screen this. And again, if you haven't done so, please like and subscribe, because if you liked this bonus rant or you liked the Delphi case, I'm not trying to become the Delphi place. Understand that. Also, if you have watched my style before, I'm long-winded. I'm going to read to you legal documents, I'm going to read to you major sections of the 113-page legal appeal. I'm going to read to you major portions of it, word for word. And so you're thinking, why don't I just read it myself? Yes, you certainly can. And if you don't want to see my reaction, shut it off now. Hopefully you stay with me. The people who like my channel like hearing my analysis and my thoughts. So if you're one of those people, do not forget to subscribe. Enough with that. All right. On screen, you see the appeal filed 12/17/2025. It's the Indiana Court of Appeals case number or cause number, and Richard Allen versus the state of Indiana. And there's a trial number. So we're going to get into the details. We can skip down past the huge amount of table of contents. There's a large portion of this that's going to be the actual laws cited, cases. And we're not going to break that down right now, even though I do love law. And I'm not a lawyer, by the way, for those who are thinking. I do talk sometimes like a lawyer. A lot of people who watch my channel ask me if I'm a lawyer. I have attorneys on my show and we talk about law, but I myself am not a lawyer. I'm just an educated armchair specialist, I guess, if you will. All right, so let's talk about the three prongs of this appeal. And again, I'm going to do my best to try to not rehash the entire crime that you guys all are knowing about, and I'm just going to focus on my reaction to some of the appealable options and what I think about it. The statement of the issue. Whether the search of Allen's home was unconstitutional and resulting evidence inadmissible because law enforcement omitted and altered key facts in the warrant application. This reminds us a lot of the Idaho 4 case and the probable cause affidavit. When a judge signs off on a search warrant for somebody's place based on misleading information, one could argue the judge never would have signed the search warrant in the first place or the arrest warrant in the first place if it wasn't for the fact that the judge was misled. And that's another one of these cases, clearly, in my opinion. The prosecutors and law enforcement worked to create something for the judge that is misleading so that he's like, well, yeah, if that's what you got on this guy, go for it. So that's going to be step one about this argument. The judge was misled about what was, and they really didn't have probable cause. Whether statements Allen made while gravely disabled during unprecedented pretrial solitary confinement were involuntary, the product of unconstitutional detention, and inadmissible. That is the massive one that shocked the piss out of me. Many people in my Idaho 4 case and other cases that I follow have the mental block, and I get it, but I'm going to explain it. They have the mental block. Devil's advocates, you're an idiot. The guy pled guilty. Nobody pleads guilty to something that they didn't do. Oh my God. Please, America, please, if you're one of these people, please read some goddamn books. When I swear, and I do swear a lot, I decide to put on a little disclaimer right there, parental advisory. That's my trigger. I've learned this. When I trigger myself, I swear a lot. I say the F-bomb a lot. So bear with me if you are a person who gets offended by that. I'm not your content creator. If you can handle it, stay with me. All right. Where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought. The shocker in this case was what happened when Richard Allen Richard Allen confessed, right? Many people in America, that was it. You were done. Well, he confessed. He literally told his wife on a phone call, yeah, I killed those girls. I'm so sorry. For everybody in America that thinks a certain way, that was it. Nail in the coffin. And a jury unanimously convicted Richard Allen to 130 years in prison because he said he did it. What comes now in the appeal, and again, maybe a lot of you knew this already. So for me, it was brand new. I had seen the interviews with the guy. I'll have to admit, I didn't think he looked terribly guilty to me. I heard many interviews with him where he said, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. Why do they keep saying I did this? I didn't do this. Over and over again. And somewhere along the line, he came up at the last minute with, you know what? I did do it. Sorry about that. And goes to prison. And for me, in the early stages, because I wasn't into true crime at the time, I wasn't doing a YouTube at the channel of the Delphi started. That's part of the problem. I wasn't doing YouTube when the Delphi case was hot and heavy. When I started doing my YouTube channel, the Delphi case was over. Richard Allen was convicted and we were done, right? And so I just kind of all right, well, I'm too late to the case. And yet, when the appeal comes in, I had some shocker moments. One of which being how that fucking confession came about. The stuff that the jury was not allowed to be told about his confession. He was broken in prison. He was broken and coerced into a false confession, in my opinion. Now, this one's a little harder than some of you can fathom. Sometimes you think a false confession is where somebody kind of beats it into you over and over again, saying, you're not leaving this room until you confess. No, this one happened through mentally breaking someone down and creating psychosis. They made this man psychotic, and the proof is in this document. Richard Allen has been broken as a human being. He is psychotic, and it's not an act. That's my opinion reading this document. He is not acting. They broke that man, and that man confessed, and all they showed to the jury was his confession and not all the evidence that he was broken mentally, that he had a psychotic break and broke mentally. They ignored, for the jury's perspective, all the statements that would have made no sense. Like maybe he's God himself. Maybe he's the president of the United States. Maybe he's not sure of this and not sure of that. Maybe he shot the girls. Maybe he did. All the things he said that were complete nutbaggage, jury never got to hear. All they got to hear is a snippet with, yeah, I did it, which was right in between other crazy shit that he said. But they're going to hold on to the part that looks like a conviction because that's how we do shit in America. And this should trouble you. When you watch what they did, in my opinion, through the appeals process that we're going to read, what they did to Richard Allen, it's a travesty. They have destroyed that human being. Now, Some of you will maintain, I know how this works. I've been doing this long enough. Some of you will maintain that guy's a piece of shit murderer who killed children, and he's faking it. And I have no sympathy for that son of a bitch. May he burn in hell. That's great. That's great. If that's your case, you are on the wrong channel, because we presume innocence until proven guilty. And this appeals process suggests to us it was an unfair trial, as oftentimes people get in America. They broke him mentally in prison, destroyed the man's mental state, and then got him to confess, and then took that little tiny moment's confession, snipped it and put it on there and said, there you go, he confessed. And America said, I'm happy with that. The guy confessed. Let's move on to the next case. You sons of bitches. All right. And then number 3. Not you sons of bitches watching this channel, because if you're watching this channel, you don't think that way, right? Because you'd have turned off a long time ago. Oh, that son of a bitch is going to say Richard Allen was faking, faking his mental. No, fuck. Like I can't even get the words out. I'm so angry. You would have turned me off a long time ago if you weren't with me. So stay with me. All right. Whether the trial court denied, this is point 3, whether the trial court denied Allen his right to a fair trial, to present a complete defense and to explain the scene and impeach the investigation. Yes. Once again, exculpatory information, meaning information that any jury, if they had seen it, would have questions about whether they got the right guy. He was not allowed to present. In a typical fashion, as we've seen in other cases of mine, wink, wink, Idaho 4, the judge decides not to let the jury hear anything that might actually cast reasonable doubt for the client. So the juries only get to hear all the things that make it look like the guy's guilty. They only get to hear the part where he said, yeah, I did it. And they don't get to hear everything in between. So screw you guys. Let's hear everything in between. All right. Now, just briefly, because again, most of you know this, and I don't want to rehash a crime all of you know. October 28, 2022, the state charged Richard Allen with 2 counts of murder. The murders themselves happened on November 1st, not the murders. The murders happened in February 2017. I thought I was going to read that here. It's not on the screen. On November 11th, following a 25-day trial, this was in 2024. So 2024. And again, I started my YouTube channel in 2025. So this was over before I got started. So forgive me for not jumping on the case. It was over before I even got started. So I decided not to pick it up when I was starting to do which cases I was going to follow. November 11th, 2024, after a 25-day trial, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts, and he was sentenced to 130 years in jail. So February 14th, 2017 is when the girls, Abby and Libby, were found dead in the woods in Delphi, Indiana. Many of you know the story. You know the video that was captured of the girl that showed the quote unquote bridge guy walking behind them, telling them to go down the hill. And then their bodies were found near that bridge, the Monon Bridge. And so a lot of the High Bridge. And so a lot of you know the details. I don't need to recover all of the details. And unfortunately, though, when we get into the appeal, we're going to have to cover some of the things that you probably have heard for a long time, like Richard Allen's description doesn't match the description that was given by many people. Things that they said happened isn't what actually happened. Those kind of things, a lot of you who've been following the case already know, I'm sure, happened. But we want to read it in the appeal for those, one, who haven't followed the case like me as closely. And it's the appeal that we're focusing on, the hard-hitting appeal that shows what the jury didn't get to see when they convicted this man for the rest of his life. Because law enforcement wanted to know whether he had seen any possible suspects, he was interviewed in a parking lot. So Richard Allen himself, early in the investigation when the girls went missing, he, along with many, many people, were interviewed and said, hey, did you see anything? And he said, yeah, I saw some girls out there. He was interviewed and he was marked cleared. And that was the case. 5.5 years go by. He was cleared. He came forward in the early stages. You know this. I'm trying not to beat it to death. You guys know he came forward early and said he saw the girls that day. He was cleared, and 5.5 years go by with no indication of him trying to hide anything or do anything out of the ordinary or act anything suspicious. And then they resurfaced information on him and went back and went full bore into convicting him of the murder. And how that happened is, as many of you know, ridiculous. All right. Here they point out again, Allen had returned to his job, his family, his home in the Delphi community. For the next 5 years, he did not sell his car. He didn't destroy his clothes. He didn't dispose of a gun. He didn't relocate, and he continued his normal routine. No witness identified Allen as the bridge guy. And yet, many of you in America say, well, you clearly see Richard Allen on that bridge. All right. When the report was rediscovered in September of 22, so remember, 2017 was the murders when the report about his saying he was out there that day was rediscovered in September 2022. Law enforcement insisted Allen was the bridge guy without a single eyewitness. Over the next several years, the state built its case against Allen, and they got that conviction, and he went away. They got that conviction after they put him in jail with a mental condition and then broke him into a confession while in prison. That story, by the way, let me side tangent for a minute. Here's where I got the blinders. I told you I had blinders on this case, that I probably would have made the same mistake. Oftentimes when people talk about the occult ritual aspect of a murder, oh, this was occultism, it was Satanists, it was Norse pagan, Odinists, whatever. As you know, this is the case in this case. When I hear the Norse pagan Odinist committed a ritual killing of the girls in the woods, I immediately thought to myself, not likely. And that's my mistake. Not likely was my first reaction. Probably not. Here we go again. It's an occult ritual. They always fall back with the occult ritual. I lived in the 80s. I lived back in the satanic panic days where everything was a satanic killing and everybody was out there sacrificing animals and whatever. And I got sick and tired of it because 90% of those came out to be completely incorrect. If an animal was found dead somewhere, then it was a satanic ritual and they pinned it on high school kids who must have been out there sacrificing cats. And none of that shit was happening 90% of the time or better. And so I got brainwashed into whatever, another ritual killing bullshit. It's almost never that. In this case, it indeed probably was that. As I look at it, I have to say, I would have also, as a law enforcement, been, yeah, whatever, here we go again. But I didn't know. I didn't know the neighborhood or the community of Delphi. I didn't know how big Odinism was there in Norse pagan religion and stuff like that. And I didn't know that individuals were interviewed who flat out said that is their religion. I heard the rumors. I know I'm on a side rant. I do that all the time. I'm on a side tangent. I'm on a rant. It's a rangent. Anyways, I know there were early indications that some of the prison guards themselves had Odinist, like the Odin god, patches on their uniform and may have broken Richard Allen in prison. And I thought, that's ridiculous. Nobody goes around wearing an Odin patch. Like, I had mental blinders on. Holy shit. Shame on me for having the mental blinders on this case. Hopefully we'll get into some of this and leave us time to do it. I may have to do this more than likely. I'll have to do this in multiple parts. All right, and so here's some statements of fact about the warrant. On February 13th at around 1:30, Libby's older sister dropped off Libby and Abby at the Monon High Bridge Trail to explore and take photos. It was a day off from school. Also, Richard Allen apparently had the day off from work and went out to the same area to collect his thoughts, saw the girls there, and became the lead suspect. And people said that he is the guy on the bridge video. That is the last known video the girls shot. They appear nervous. You know the story. They appear nervous. They think this guy's following them, and then they end up dead right after that. And we all believe, many people believe, that that guy walking behind them is the killer, that they literally filmed their killer. Problem is, people can't really place that to Richard Allen. I know some of you think for sure it is, but that's the $1 million question, right? We're not going to go into some. I was going to read a lot of these details, and there's a picture of the famous bridge guy, right? He tells that he's heard on camera telling the girls down the hill. Very, very small amounts of words that were said. All right, so I am going to focus right here because some of these things come up in the appeal. So again, some of this might be old news to you. Even the appeal thing might be old news, but I'm going to give you my reactions. And I realized I have to cover this part. Law enforcement set up a tip line and many people came forward. 16-year-old RV, her sisters IV and AS, and her boyfriend BW, so redacted names, right, told police that they were on the trail. And also they're underage, so they were redacted because of their age, I'm sure, as well. Told police that they were on the trail and that they were leaving. They saw a man near the entrance of the Freedom Bridge. Bestie Blair, who frequently walked the trails for exercise, came forward and told police that she saw a white man on the high bridge standing on a platform and seemed to be waiting for someone. She thought the man was the guy in the video because he was wearing the same clothes. Then it says, when she reached the bridge, she turned around and noticed two girls approaching. 4 months after the murders, law enforcement interviewed Sarah Carbaugh. And so these names are going to come up. These two names are going to come up a lot. And it's Blair and Carbaugh, the two witnesses that talked about seeing this guy here with the girls. 4 months after the murders, law enforcement interviewed Sarah Carbaugh. She told police that on February 13th, while driving eastbound on the County Road 300, she saw a muddy man wearing a tan coat. Listen, a tan coat. Many people know this. I get it. But I want to point out when we get to the appeals, the importance of all these details. She saw a muddy man wearing a tan coat walking west towards town. After seeing the image of the bridge guy in the median, Carbaugh said he possibly was the man that she had seen, despite the fact that if you look at it, he's wearing a blue coat, not a tan coat. Is there a tan thing underneath him? I don't know. We're going to save that for later. All right. So 5.5 years later, they recovered this tip line that said that he was at the bridge that day and he'd seen the girls. Alan called and said he was on the bridge between 1 and maybe 3. He saw 3 girls. That would maybe be the older sister and the 2 girls that ended up dead, and so on. All right. So they immediately started investigating the now 50-year-old Alan, and they believed that the man the 4 girls saw on the bridge was the bridge guy. All right. So the man, the 4 girls, RV and others, that means those witnesses had seen, was the bridge guy. They all thought that. The investigators, they went full bore ahead. As we know, he still lived in the same house, blah, blah, blah. After writing to the police station with police, when they showed up at his house, he agreed to talk to them. They took him to the police station. He patiently answered questions about his personal life, how he took off and the walk that he took on his day off 5.5 years earlier. 5.5 years earlier. How many of you can remember exactly what you were doing 5.5 years ago on a certain day? I couldn't do it. Alan explained after spending the morning with his mom in February that he went home and got a jacket before going to the trails. He walked out the first platform of the high bridge, looked at the fish, and walked back before returning home to watch the stock market. That, of course, looked suspicious to the investigators, and so he became prime suspect number 1. Even though that he willingly came to them and answered all their questions, he couldn't remember the car that he drove or the clothes that he wore 5.5 years ago. And I don't, and again, some people have the same car for a long time, but he couldn't even remember the car that he drove or the clothes he was wearing that day. So we're going to set that aside for a minute. I want to get to the big meaty pieces. When law enforcement asked for consent to search Alan, he expressed concern that they were making him somebody's fall guy. So right away, Alan realizes there's a turn in this friendly investigation about, hey, what did you see 5.5 years ago? He realizes there's a turn in the investigator's demeanor, and he starts becoming concerned that he's becoming the fall guy for this case, and they're trying to fit pieces together that do not fit. And that's indeed what the appeals will say they did. They decided at some point he was the guy, and then they decided to fit all pieces of information to him, ignore all pieces that don't go to him, and convict. And that's how we do shit in America. That's how we do shit in America. Law enforcement decides who they're going to pin on the murder, and then they just narrowly focus on the things that reinforce what they already believe and don't tell people about the things that would cause doubt. That is exculpatory information when you don't tell people, hey, by the way, we think it's this, but we're just going to not tell you. There's a whole bunch of reasons to think it wasn't this guy. We're just going to show you that here's the reasons why we think it is. We're not going to tell you the reasons why we think it might not be. All right. So after the break, law enforcement returned and became more confrontational with Alan. He became frustrated of being accused of murder and so on and so on. Again, many of you know all of this. Now we're going to get into the details. Again, many of you know this, but I want to give you my reactions to the appeals part, so we're going to have to cover it. The story that Detective Liggett told the judge. On October 13th, 2022, the state applied for a warrant for Alan's home, car, and electronics. As usual, in my opinion, when they go to get a warrant from a judge, they simply tell the judge the things that make a person look guilty to have that judge say, yeah, based on that, absolutely, go get this guy. They don't point out the reasons why maybe we'd have cause for doubt. So this is what happened here. In Detective Liggett's probable cause affidavit, the PCA, like many people are familiar with the PCA from Brian Koberger's case, he concluded that Alan is the last individual to have contact with Libby and Abby. and is the individual depicted on the Monon High Bridge from the video taken by Libby's phone. He reasoned that Allen admitted that he was wearing a blue jacket and head covering, like the bridge guy, was on the trail around the time of the abduction, and that witnesses, Blair and Carbaugh among them, saw a man they believed to be the bridge guy wearing a blue jacket. Detective Liggett implied that Blair and the girls saw the same man because they similarly described his jacket. So, what you're going to find out is how he's cherry picking only the information to give the judge that would lead the judge to say, yeah, sounds like the guy, go get him. Detective Liggett concluded that Allen drove his black 2016 Ford Focus and parked it at the old CPS building on 300 North, and that's like on 300 North. We don't have to read the page numbers. He claimed that witnesses, Blair and Wilson, saw a car backed into a parking spot at the CPS building. Wilson felt that the driver of the car was trying to conceal his license. Wilson said that the car was purple, a PT Cruiser, wow, or small SUV type vehicle. Blair and Wilson drew a diagram and had the vehicle they saw parked in the same general area and manner. So you're going to find out that their depictions of the car are not the same as Allen. The depictions of the jacket are not the same as Allen. The depictions of his description is not the same of Richard Allen. And yet, all of those things were not told to the judge, only the parts that make it look like it maybe they're all talking about the same guy when they clearly were talking about something different. The part of the story Liggett did not tell the judge. This is the key. Blair's description of the bridge guy did not match Allen. Detective Liggett did not tell the judge about the differences between Blair's description of the man on the bridge and Allen's appearance. Just 3 days after the murders, Blair described the man as being white, age 20, medium build, having brown curly hair. An artist completed the sketch, which Blair rated as a 10 out of 10 for being, that's the guy I'm talking about. So they worked with a sketch artist. They told them, hey, it's a young guy, poofy brown hair, a certain type of build. And they drew a sketch based on their description and came up with this. That looks nothing like Richard Allen. And the person working with the sketch artist says, 10 out of 10, that's the guy I saw. That should be a problem. And that was never told to a judge when they said, hey, we want to go after Richard Allen as the guy. The judge was never told this was the description that the person described seeing there, and it was 10 out of 10. That's what I saw. A young guy with big hair in his 20s that has no connection to the 44-year-old Richard Allen out there who is short, stocky, short hair, doesn't match the build at all, doesn't match the description at all, and would have come up with a 0 on this scale of 10. That wasn't told to the judge. In 2019, Detective Liggett personally interviewed Blair, who again described the man as slender, youthful, boyish looking, in his 20s to early 30s, no facial hair, poofy hair like the sketch portrayed, which she still gave a 9 out of 10 in accuracy. Years later, still giving it a 9 out of 10. Yep, that's the guy I saw. That guy right there. That's not anything fucking remotely close to Richard Allen. At the time of the murders, Allen was 44 years old, 5'6", and very short hair. So that none of her description matches him. But that wasn't told to the judge. Blair's description of the oddly parked car did not match Allen's car. That's point number 2. Detective Liggett also omitted to the judge, not letting the judge know. Detective Liggett also admitted Blair's description of the oddly parked car as resembling a 1965 Ford Comet with sharp angles. So that was what was just, Blair described it as a 1965 Ford Comet with sharp angles. Below is her drawing of the car compared to Allen's actual hatchback. So if you look at this picture, the yellow page drawing has a car with very sharp angles. They're drawing how the sharp angles were because that's how she described it, and that's how they drew it, sharp angles, and they agreed to that description. There's his car on the left, a rounded vehicle with no sharp angles that look even remotely close to that. If you want to play the child's game of, well, it looks kind of like a car, so that must be it, then go to another channel. So that doesn't look anything remotely like that car, and that was not told. That was not shown to the judge. Blair also said the oddly parked car was a nondescript color, but not black. Problem with that is Allen's car is black. Well, I don't know exactly what that car was. I can't remember what color it was, but it certainly wasn't black. Allen's car is black. That was never told to the judge. Yeah, the car she saw, or the car they saw, was not black, and Allen's car is black. It had sharp angles, and Allen's car doesn't have sharp angles. They saw a 20-year-old with bushy hair, and he's 44 with short hair and facial hair. None of that was told to the judge. Only the parts that place a reason to believe that Allen is the guy. Go get him. Detective Liggett admitted that Blair told the man Carbaugh described walking down the road is not the same man that she saw on the bridge. Blair told him that the man Carbaugh described walking down the bridge was not the same man on the bridge. That wasn't told to the judge. After talking with Blair in 2019, Indiana State Police issued a press release distinguishing the man that Carbaugh saw from the man on the bridge. The Indiana State Police explained the men are not the same person and that Blair's sketch is representative of the face of a person captured in the video of Libby's cell phone. So they later on came with this other sketch, and this is the one they went through, which is a little closer because now you've got somebody who's older, has facial hair, and a little older. So now they're starting to move towards a description. What the witness they want to tell you about that places it closer to the guy. But point 4, Carbaugh said the man walking down the road was wearing a tan coat. Detective Liggett also made false statements in the affidavit. In the probable cause affidavit, Detective Liggett made false statements. He claimed that an interview was done of Sarah Carbaugh in 2017 and that she stated she saw a man wearing a blue colored jacket and was muddy and bloody. That's a fucking problem because all of that is lies. Carbaugh did not describe the man as bloody, only as muddy. He added the word, oh yeah, she saw a man walking in a coat with blood and mud on him. That is not what she said. He lied to the judge. And based on that, the judge was like, well, shit, yeah. If you see a guy in a blue coat that's got blood on him and muddy and walking there and drives the same car, fucking go get him. You got the right guy. None of that shit was told to the judge. She said also that he was wearing a tan jacket. That was not told to the judge because the person they're looking for on the video is a guy with a blue jacket. She said it was tan. He didn't tell the judge, hey, by the way, she also said this guy who is bloody and muddy is wearing a tan jacket. We're just going to leave that part out. She said she saw this guy. Can we go get him? Yeah. Point 5, what the judge wasn't shown. Allen never said that he was wearing a blue Carhartt, and his wife said Allen had purchased the current Carhartt a couple of years earlier. Now, this is going to get a little bit more nuanced. Detective Liggett falsely stated that Allen said he was wearing a blue or black or blue Carhartt with a hood and a head covering. So in other words, let's take this again. The appeals is stating Detective Liggett falsely stated that Allen told him that he was wearing a blue or black Carhartt with a head covering. Allen told investigators he did not know what he was wearing and it could have been anything from a Carhartt to a sweatshirt, and that he kept a skull cap in his jacket. That's what he actually said. I don't remember what color jacket I was wearing. I usually carry a cap with me. And what Liggett said was he was wearing a black jacket with a hood, with a hat on. That's not what he told them. He lied about that as well. Although Allen's wife said that he had a blue Carhartt in 2022, Liggett left out that she, Allen's wife, had said he purchased the coat a couple of years ago. The girls were killed in 2017. Why is this important? 2022, Allen's wife said that he had a jacket that was a blue Carhartt that might match the description of the guy on the bridge in 2017, but she said he only bought that jacket a couple of years ago. Again, the detective failed to mention to the judge that the coat was bought in 2020, 3 years after the murders, and instead said, yep, he owns a blue Carhartt just like the one you see on that bridge, failing to tell the judge that supposedly he didn't even have that jacket until 3 years after the murders. And now comes the warrant. The trial court issued the warrant Law enforcement seized from Allen's home multiple items, including a Sig Sauer gun, knives, casings, and the Carhartt-type jacket with a white and yellow patch on the front pocket. These items were featured prominently in Allen's trial. Allen denies that the bullet is his and that he was the bridge guy or had anything to do with the murders. At the scene, officers found an unspent, meaning unfired, .40 caliber Smith & Wesson cartridge near Libby's right ankle. When ISP analyst Melissa Oberg cycled 6 cartridges through Allen's gun, she did not find any marks that matched the marks on the cycled round at the scene. Thus, she could not establish a link between Allen's gun and the unspent round at the scene. So listen, they had somebody who try to match up the unspent round at the scene with Allen's gun when they seized his gun during the arrest and couldn't find a match. Oberg then fired 4 cartridges from Allen's gun. She compared the markings on these spent cartridges to the markings on the unspent cartridge found at the scene and concluded that Allen's gun was the source of some of the markings on the unspent cartridge at the murder scene. So after firing the gun a few times, she comes up with something that says some of these marks might match the bullet that was found at the scene that wasn't fired. After learning of Oberg's conclusion on October 26, 2022, law enforcement interrogated Allen again. So now that they've got an expert saying, hey, some of these bullet casings when fired match the unfired casing at the place, they go back and they interrogate, hey, we got something new, by the way. For about an hour and a half, Detective Holman accused Allen of killing Abby and Libby, or at least being involved. Allen explained, the very day that the police asked anyone on the trail to come forward, that is what he did. Like the day you said, somebody, if you see anything, come forward, and I did. I went for a walk on the trail and went home. I did not murder those little girls. That's been his consistent statement until they broke him in prison, is what they're going to show. Detective Holman repeatedly confronted Allen with Oberg's conclusion that the marks on the casings at the scene matched his gun. It's not entirely what she said. Some of the marks she thought matched, some matched, but they're going to tell Allen, hey, we've got you. Like we had an expert say that the markings on that bullet match your bullet. Each time Allen denied that the bullet at the scene was from his gun. I saw some of those interviews where they kept saying, well, how do you explain that it's the same? Those markings are the same. I don't know how to explain it. It's not my gun. He repeated that over and over again. And they kept saying, well, how do you explain it? I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. That wasn't good for them. You're going to stay here until you explain to us how the marks on the gun must be your gun. Holman even claimed the methodology was scientific, like a fingerprint. Exhausted and frustrated by Detective Holman's relentless accusations that he murdered Abby and Libby, Allen consistently said he could not tell them what happened to the girls because he doesn't know. He did not know how the round got between the girls' legs or how they died. He emphatically stated, I did not murder 2 little girls. Despite Holman's lying about the experts identifying Allen and his voice in the video, so Detective Holman lied about how, hey, look, we can identify your voice on the video. Allen continued to deny that he was the bridge guy. Detective Holman tried a different lie, saying, hey, look, 5 witnesses say that Allen was with Libby and Abby and had a gun. Again, Allen said, it didn't happen. I don't care how stressed out I'm getting I'm not going to admit to something that I didn't do. I saw a lot of those interviews. I believed him, but a lot of you didn't. Detective Holman tried to use Allen's depression against him. He had clinical depression, people. And Detective Holman tried to use Allen's depression against him, claiming that it was because he killed 2 girls. Boy, you seem to have depression. Yeah, he has clinical depression. I bet you're depressed because you killed those girls, isn't it? That would make me fucking depressed. Like, I already dealing with enough shit, dude. Now you're going to come at me with this? Detective Holman even used Allen's wife as an interrogation tool. While Allen was being interrogated, Indiana State Police told her that the bullet at the scene matched her husband's gun. They told her flat out, look, I don't know what to tell you, but your husband killed these kids. His bullet matches the bullet at the gun. When they brought her in to see Allen, he hugged her and said, it is going to be all right. And while they left them together, she asked how his bullet got on the scene. I saw this interview a little bit too. While left alone together, she asked how his bullet got at the scene, and he repeated what he told Dr. Holman, or Detective Holman, sorry, not doctor, Detective Holman. I'm not going to say I did something I didn't do, and I can't explain something I don't understand. She kept, well, then how did your bullet get there? I don't know. I can't explain it, but I'm not going to admit to something I didn't do. He told her, I know that no bullet from my gun was connected with the murder in any way, shape, or form. That's what I know. No gun from my bullet was at that scene. That's what I know. Well, then why are they telling you that your bullet's there? I don't know why they're telling me that, but I'm telling you, it's not my bullet. And I believe that. ISP, Indiana State Police, lied to Allen's wife, too. They lied to her as well. This is another thing we have got a problem in this country. Detectives are allowed to lie to everyone, tell you that they have evidence they don't have, tell other people they have evidence you don't have, tell you that other people you love and trust have turned against you and believe that you're the killer. They're allowed to lie to you about all of those things. It is disgusting what we allow to happen in this country. Allen assured her. So first of all, Allen, Indiana State Police lied to Allen's wife, telling her that a witness had identified her husband. That's not true. Allen assured his wife they are not going to get away with this, and told her, "I'm sorry that you are having to hurt. I'm sorry for having to go through it." At one point, he's going to tell his wife, as sad as this fucking shit is, at one point he's going to tell his wife, "Look, if you can't handle all this pressure and it's getting to you, just let me know and I'll tell them anything they want to hear." Fuck me. Solitary confinement. Now, this is where they break Richard Allen. And it's the crux of it's the real meat. It's the real meat behind this appeal. How they got him to confess was systematic, automatic. Sorry, I'm starting to go into Greece. It became, I can't help it. I got a lot of pop references in my head and I side tangent at inappropriate times, just like that. Anyways, they broke him in prison. They made him psychotic through a series of things. And when you see what he was doing, you tell me whether you think that's something somebody's just acting or whether they literally broke Richard Allen in prison and got him to confess through a series of breaking his mind. Just days after the 50-year-old Allen was arrested for the first time in his life, never been arrested, never had problems with the law, just an everyday, normal, average guy. He was sent to IDOC, Detention of Corrections, Indiana Detention of Corrections, I'm guessing, as a safekeeper. At IDOC, he was transferred. They transferred him to the Westville Correctional Unit, or WCU, a maximum security segregation unit for the worst of the worst. So again, he's not on trial yet. He's being held for trial, and they put him in the Westville Correctional Unit at WCU, maximum security segregation from everybody else, the worst of the worst. That's where they stick him. A man with mental health issues. There you go. Mental health issues, depression issues. The movies refer to it as the hole, and it's mostly used to punish people. So again, keep in mind, he's not been on trial yet. He's just being held, and they put him in the worst place that is designed to punish people for what they've done. Remember, Richard Allen should have the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law, but they put him in a place where he's being treated like he needs to be punished for what he has done. Allen was the first safekeeper in any IDOC employee's memory to be placed at WCU. What does that mean? He's supposed to be just in a low security correctional facility waiting his trial, and they move him to the hole, segregating him, isolating him, a man with depression issues, putting him in the worst possible place. And to their memory, to people's memory, they've never seen that happen before, but it happened to Richard Allen. Why? Pretrial safekeepers with mental health issues are usually placed in a mental health unit. Not him. He's placed in the hole. The IDOC knew Allen had major depressive disorder. That's a medical diagnosis, major depressive disorder, MDD, and was hospitalized in 2019 for suicidal ideation. Jesus, they knew he had a diagnosed mental health disorder of depression and had suicidal thoughts prior to this, and they put him in a detention center, isolating him from other human beings in the hole with the worst conditions possible, and broke his mind, is what, again, the appeal is going to focus on. He received a D mental health code, the second worst or most severe. I'm assuming F would be the worst, right? Entitling him to one out-of-cell psychology visit weekly. During the visits, Allen was shackled and confined in a 3-by-3-foot cage separated from the psychologist. So he's treated like an animal when he sees his psychologist once a week in a 3-by-3-foot cage, shackled while he talks to his psychologist. That psychologist will make evaluations about when he's sane, such as when he's sane and sober and lucid, such as telling them that he did the murders, and everything else. He'll say, look, he's just acting. Any shit that doesn't look like he's a sane human being, saying irrational shit, eating his own poop, all kinds of stuff, as he mentally was broke as a human being and completely lost his mind. All of that is ignored. They won't tell the jury that at all. They'll take a moment where he said, I guess I killed those girls, and say, yeah, he was completely lucid when he said that. I see no reason to think that he didn't know exactly what he was saying when he said, I killed those girls. That's what you should focus on. Don't look at any of the tape that shows him eating his own shit, spitting, jerking off in front of people, all kinds of stuff. Yes, I'm vulgar. The guy lost his fucking mind. You will watch this laid out in detail. The jury was not shown or told any of that stuff that was happening in the cell when he was losing his mind. Instead, they said anytime he made a comment in all that time of incarceration that maybe I did it, that became what the jury heard. Yeah, I did it, I guess. I did it, I guess. Yep, got him. Confessed. Nobody confesses to something they didn't do. Allen had no face-to-face interactions unless he was shackled or separated by bars. Outside of his cell, he was restrained with leg irons, handcuffs, and belly chains on a leash. Other Westville inmates in general population lived in dorms, played games together, watched TV, and moved around freely. Allen was placed in a strip cell, stripped of everything but the bare necessities. Allen's cell was 8.5 by 12.5 with a camera, a mattress, and a concrete slab, and had bug infestation. His only view was a narrow window facing razor wire fence. Meals were passed through his door slot, and he ate alone on the floor or bed. That's the condition he lived in for extreme amounts of time while having severe depressive disorder. Allen was recorded 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with suicide companions outside his cell door, writing down his statements and behavior. Funny, they're only going to show you the statements that make it look like guilt, not all the shit where he loses his fucking mind. This is the crux of the problem. These sons of bitches are waiting for any kind of comment that he might make, being watched 24 hours, 7 days a week, rambling about fucking insane shit about nuclear war and fucking whether he's God or not and whether he's on a plane or whatever, and all kinds of fucking crazy. None of that shit gets shown to a jury. They wait 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for him to say anything that might be looking like a confession of guilt and say, on this day and at this time, he said, yeah, I killed those girls. And people in America did the whole, nobody says they did something they didn't do. Most of us also won't tell you that we think we're God, unless maybe you're in Eastern philosophy, but that's a whole nother story. All right. IDOC, the Correctional Detention Center, knew that solitary confinement could worsen Allen's depressive disorder and even cause psychosis. They knew that solitary confinement could worsen his depressive disorder and cause psychosis, which it did, in my opinion. And it's my unprofessional opinion. Professionals are going to also give their opinion as well, but my unprofessional opinion, yeah, they broke him. Their policy restricted the time that inmates with serious mental illness, or SMI, can stay in solitary confinement to 30 days. But IDOC did not apply that policy to Allen, and he remained in the most secure solitary confinement at WCU for 13 months. Over a year, he was in this private solitary confinement, shackled like a dog, treated like a dog, when they knew he had depressive disorder, and their own policy said no one with depressive disorder should spend more than 30 days in the hole. He spent over a year in the hole, isolated until he broke and became psychotic. Early in custody, Allen maintained innocence and believed solitary was meant to tear him down. Early in his custody, he said, they're trying to break me. And they got him, in my opinion. He told psychologist Dr. Walla that he felt like a broken man after just 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And he's got major depressive disorder. And after 2 weeks, he said, I think I'm being broken. They're trying to break me, and I already feel like a broken man in 2 weeks. Alan described a quiet, normal life previously. Alan was extremely devoted to his wife. And on November 14th, 2022, he emotionally told her, if this becomes too much for you, call the detectives and I will tell them whatever they want to know. Listen, you sons of bitches who don't understand what he just said. For all of you guilters out there, and I know there are a ton of you out there, what he just said was, I'll confess if you can't handle it anymore because I did it. It's not what he fucking said. He loved his wife, is what I'm seeing. He loved his wife. He saw it was causing her extreme emotional distress. And he said, look, if it ever gets too much to you, just tell them that I will give them whatever they need to know. Meaning, I will confess to something I didn't do to take the pain off of you. If you can't handle this, I'll just tell them I did it. That's what he told his wife, in my opinion. That's my interpretation. Sons of bitches will tell you what he said was, hey, I'll confess to the crimes I did when you decide that you can't handle the pressure. I did it, but I won't tell them that until you tell me that you're done, and you can't handle the stress. And then I'll tell them all the details about what really happened. No, that's not what he fucking said, in my opinion. What he said was, if this becomes too much to you, just let them know. I'll give them whatever confession they want. By January, son of a bitch. Think about this, people. This kind of shit happens. It should disgust you. You should correct yourself if you've ever said the words, nobody pleads guilty of something they didn't do. In this man's case, he may have loved his wife so much and had mental disorders and depression. And he's like, I can't watch my wife go through this kind of thing. If you ever get it to the point where you can't handle it, just let me know and I'll fucking confess to whatever they want me to say, just to end this for you. By January 26, 2023, Alan was expressing paranoia. Now where it comes to how they've broken him. January 26, 2023. In late March and early April, around the time that Alan received his discovery and met with his attorneys, so he had received discovery in his case about what they had on him and all those things, and meeting with his attorneys, Alan's behavior had worsened. By the time that he gets the discovery and they're trying to prepare for his trial, he's already broken. Guards thought that he was just acting up. He was refusing meals, became nonsensical, spoke of the old bear claw hypnotizing him, acted like he was from medieval times, which the guards all thought was just him putting on a great act. It's signs of psychosis, is what the appeal is going to say. They had already broken his mind. He was starting to hallucinate. He was starting to have crazy ideations and thoughts. He was starting to say nonsensical things that, and again, definition of nonsensical, things that don't make sense. Nonsensical, things that don't make sense. He ripped legal mail. He washed his face in toilet water. He drank toilet water. He stuck a spork into his own nuts, his genitalia, and covered himself with feces, spit, and vomit. These, the guards interpreted as he's acting up to try to get a mental health defense. Or you put somebody in solitary confinement, shackled like a dog, who already had major depressive disorder, against your own policies, which said you can't do that to somebody with that kind of condition for more than 30 days. And that broke him. Video from early April showed that Alan was frightened, extremely thin, bleeding, shaking, contorting, and interacting with non-existent stimuli. Listen, most people don't know how to act at this level. He's interacting with shit that's not there. It's like he sees things that are not there, or he's talking to things that's what it means to interact with non-existent stimuli. Talking to somebody who's not there, pointing or looking at something that's not there, is interacting with non-existent stimuli. These are things that many people don't think of when they're faking their condition, like eating their own shit and stuff like that. I can't even imagine faking it being so committed to your ruse that you're going to eat your own poop, but all right. He was pacing back and forth, eating his Bible and hitting his head on the cell door. On video from April 12th, he was naked while flapping while he flapped his hands. I'm not sure exactly what flapped his hands mean. Punching the air, counted imaginary objects in the air, pulled feces from his own ass and smeared it into his food and marched in place. This, again, guards will say, was just him putting on a big, huge act because he wants to suggest that he's insane when he's not. He's just acting up. Or He literally had a mental breakdown because they put him in solitary confinement, a man who had a mental disorder to start with. Cruel and unusual punishment is part of what should happen here. By April 13th, Alan's health had become dire. The IDOC psychiatrist, Dr. Martin, saw him naked, covered in feces with brown fluid coming out of his mouth from eating his own poop. He literally had saliva with poop in it coming out of his mouth because he'd been eating his own shit, naked, covered in feces, and eating his own shit. And Dr. Martin found him to be very psychotic, hallucinating, and incompetent to consent to treatment. He's not even able to consent to his own treatment because he's become psychotic. Guards will say, putting on an act. On April 14th, the IDOC ordered involuntary medication and found him gravely disabled. They diagnosed him as gravely disabled, and they gave him drugs. So they ordered involuntary medication. They'll give him Haldol. During one of the Haldol treatments, when he makes a confession statement, they will say the Haldol cleared up his psychosis long enough for him to have a lucid moment and say, yeah, I killed those girls. You fucking sons of bitches. I feel so sick. He had lost an abnormal amount of weight and was not sleeping. Haldol produced minimal improvement, but they'll say made him lucid enough long enough to confess to the crime. He continued to speak in loose associations about things like nuclear war, poisoning, dying, losing reality, cryogenic eyeballs, and not remembering confessions that he had already given. He also continued to play with his poop, his feces. After letting Alan sit in his feces for 2 hours on April 23rd, he was removed from his cell and given a shower. They let him sit in his own shit for a couple hours before giving him a shower. Alan's symptoms continued through May. On May 3rd, Dr. Walla diagnosed Alan with a brief psychotic disorder. He's having a brief psychotic break, noting that he had disorganized speech and behavior, but no delusions or hallucinations. Despite the fact that we've seen on camera talking and interacting with things that aren't there, counting things that aren't there in the air, all those things. She did no signs of hallucinations. He's perfectly fine. He just had a brief psychotic disorder. On May 25th, his shot was still not working, his shot of Haldol. Alan paced for 2 hours, banged the back and front of his head on the metal door for about an hour. Despite the self-injury and a visible goose egg on his head, no one checked on him. The next day, Alan had 2 black eyes from banging his head, and on June 5th, the IDOC was administered another 30-day involuntary emergent Haldol injection. So the first injection didn't do shit for him, so they gave him a second injection of Haldol. On June 20th, Alan was catatonic and extremely skinny. Guards carried him to the infirmary, strapped in a chair. After his visit, he remained vacant while staff wiped drool from his mouth. The same day, Dr. Martin claimed that Alan was coherent, oriented, and not psychotic, and had been free of psychosis for 7 weeks, returning to a baseline on May 2nd. Wow, listen. Documented. On the same day that he was catatonic, extremely skinny, had to be carried to an infirmary, strapped in a chair, had drool coming out of his mouth. The same day that all that happened, Dr. Martin said that he was coherent, oriented, not psychotic, and had been free of any psychosis for 7 weeks. Alan's confessions to his family. And I think we're going to wrap up short at some point because this is, like I said, this is going to be a multi-part. I want to test it and see how you guys think. Is this completely a waste of your time? Do you don't give a shit about my opinions? Have you already heard all this before and I'm offering nothing new? That's my trial balloon. Because again, for me, all of this stuff about his psychotic break in prison is new. I saw many of the interviews. I saw the confession. And I didn't believe it when I saw it. I was like, man, something doesn't seem right about that. What I didn't know was all this shit that was also hidden from the jury. His psychotic break was hidden from the jury. All they got to see was the moments where he was lucid enough to say, yeah, I guess I did it. Alan's confession to his family. Alan confessed to his family over the phone on April 3rd, May 10th, May 17th, June 5th, and June 11th. And you look at that and you're like, wow, he confessed a lot of times. That must be consistent and therefore mean something. Maybe. On April 3rd, he told his wife, I did it. I killed Abby and Libby. Later saying, maybe I did. I think I did. Listen, they don't want to show the jury things like maybe I did, I think I did. They'll take the moment where he said, I killed her. I did it. I killed those kids. Later, he says in the same conversation, maybe I did. I think I did. On May 17th, Alan insisted to his mother that he killed the girls. The next day, on May 18th, Alan banged his head against his cell door to the point that he had a gash. The next day, one day he tells his mother that he killed the girls. The next day he's banging his head on the door until he gets a gash. On June 5th and 6th, Alan told his wife that he did it, but that he had lost his mind and he's probably going to kill himself and feels like he's already in hell and does not understand what's happening to him. But again, what they'll focus for the jury and how they got the conviction was that he told his wife he did it. We will not tell him that he says, I'm not sure I understand what's even happening. I feel like I'm in hell. I feel like I want to kill myself. I feel like they're breaking me. I'm having mental breakdowns. That wasn't told. Only the confession parts. From April through June, guards repeatedly heard Alan confess, I killed Abby and Libby, amidst bizarre behavior. So while he's doing all kinds of crazy shit, being monitored 24/7, anytime he would say something like, I killed those girls, that became part of the record. All the other shit, the incoherent, bizarre behavior in between, was ignored and not told to the jury. His statements occurred while he was smearing feces, rolling in it, drank toilet water, shouted at the shadows, sang, masturbated, paced, saluted, asked nonsensical questions, and hit his head and asked if he was dead already. But what they pulled out for the jury was, on this day, this day, and this day, and this day, he said he did it. And that's all you need to know. He said he did it. Nobody confesses to something they didn't do. On April 29th, Alan made a more specific statement to a guard claiming that he killed the two girls in Delphi with a box cutter that he stole from and left in the trash at a CVS. He was going to rape them, he said, but he panicked and killed them. He said they were screaming. Just the day before, he was covered in feces. The day before his big confession, I killed him with a box cutter. They were screaming. The day before, he was smearing himself in poop. Now, one of the things that you cannot overlook, and many of you will, is that oftentimes when they're breaking somebody in an interrogation or like this, they tell you over and over again what you did. You killed those little girls. You cut their throats. You horribly slashed their throats. You did this to them. You did this to them. Just admit what you did. This is what you did. We saw what you did. You used a box cutter. So when he says, hey, I used a box cutter to cut them, it doesn't mean that, oh, it's proof he's telling them something that only the killer would know. No, they fucking told him. That's what happened to the girls. He knew what happened. They told him. Later, however, he will add details about what he did to the girls that did not happen. They were materially incorrect. You know what they didn't do? They didn't tell the jury anything that he said about what he did to those girls that did not happen. They didn't tell the jury that. They didn't say he confessed to things that he did that didn't happen. They only told them things that were consistent with what they say did happen. Dr. Walla. On April 5th, Alan's emotions shifted rapidly. He questioned whether he was God. Am I God? He slipped a sheet under the door, wanting to confess to the warden. Later, Alan told Dr. Walla, I killed Abby and Libby. I'm sorry. He had intense eye contact, bizarre smiling, and circumstantial thoughts. Although he would go off on a tangent and sometimes never return to the original topic, Dr. Walla claimed that his confession was concise. He's rambling and incoherent, can't keep a solid thought. But if he ever says, hey, I killed those girls, he was very lucid, very articulate and said, I killed the girls. That's all you need to know. Alan said he was motivated by sex, but he was uncertain whether he had sex with the girls. I wanted to rape them, but I'm not sure if I did. Maybe they didn't tell him he raped the girls, so he's not sure if he did. Alan also confessed to molesting his sister and daughter, claims contradicted by them. So he said, yeah, I like to rape and molest people. I've molested my own sister and my own daughter. They went to those people, and those people said, No, that never happened. I was never molested by this guy. 2 days later, Alan asked Dr. Walla if he had confessed. Did I confess to the murders? Did I confess? That kind of shit also is not going to be told to the jury. Not that he questioned whether he confessed, just that he confessed. On May 2nd, Alan was very genteel, repeating himself and jumping between topics. I killed Abby and Libby. I will kill everyone. I will wipe out the whole world after I die. After I die, I'm going to wipe out the whole world? How are you going to do that? Delusions. He's having delusions. He's mentally broke. He mentioned World War III, was confusing nightmares and reality, thought that he must have schizophrenia, was randomly saying that the word methamphetamine, and telling people, including Dr. Walla, that he loved them. The day before, Dr. Walla was unable to have a meaningful conversation with him. The day before, she was unable to have, or the doctor was not able to have a meaningful conversation with him. On May 3rd, he confessed to following the girls to the bridge when the bullet fell out of his pocket, or whatever, I guess, and then said, down the hill. So again, now he's starting to tell a story that's consistent with what they told him happened. Hey, we found a bullet. Oh yeah, I was following the girls. A bullet fell out of my pocket. He was going to rape them, but he saw a van, he said. This becomes again, I don't think we have time. I'm trying to figure out where to stop this because it's very, very detailed about the van. The van is going to be a critical part. The van is a lie. A van is a lie. The van is a lie by a person who might actually be the killer. The person who lied about the van, who they then told Richard Allen, you probably saw this van. And then he remembers, oh yeah, I saw the van. That van didn't go through at the time that anyone said. And the guy who said he drove the van by was lying. You'll see that later. Again, I don't know if we're going to get to it yet. I'm trying to find a breaking point. We're an hour in and I want to find a breaking point just to see if you guys even give a shit about my analysis. All right. So he said he was going to rape them, but so let me start this. So he confessed that he followed the girls when a bullet fell out and he said down the hill. He was going to rape them, but saw a van. He crossed the creek, slit their throats, and covered their bodies with tree branches. That, by the way, is bullshit. He did not cover the bodies with tree branches. A few sticks were found on top of them. 3% body coverage on each girl. A few sticks, not covered them in tree branches. But again, what's told to the jury are things like they were covered in tree branches. And again, anything that makes it look like it was something that it wasn't. He did not cover those girls. He wasn't hiding bodies. And when I say he, I mean the killer. The killer wasn't burying them in tree branches. There was a few sticks on top of them, which will lead to the discussion about a Norse occult ritual. I shouldn't say occult and Norse together. A Norse ritual, a pagan ritual. Sticks like runes. And when I first heard it, I admit it. When I first heard it, I thought, no, bullshit. It's never the ritual. It's never really the ritual. That's always like fanciful shit by people who are paranoid and think that everything's Satan and Satan. But no, the meat behind the rune thing is way fucking stronger, way stronger than you can imagine. Well, maybe again, rhetorically, because you probably already know the whole story about the runes. I didn't know the extent. And in the appeal that we're going to read, they talk about the crazy runes found on a major suspect's hand that matches the runes, the sticks laid on top of one of the victims. That shit I did not know. Did you know that? Maybe you did already know that. The sticks were arranged on one of the girls that look the same as a rune tattoo and a guy that probably is one of the actual suspects. But they ignored that. All right. So he also said that he feared missing Easter, thought that his interactions with Dr. Walla were fake. So he thinks his conversations with his psychiatrist were fake conversations. He was paranoid about his safety. After entering a summary into Alan's record, Dr. Walla destroyed her notes. So Dr. Walla is taking notes on their conversation, but when it doesn't seem to lead to what she wants as a conclusion, she just destroys her notes. On May 10, with Dr. Walla present, Alan told his wife, I did this, I killed Abby and Libby, while also insisting that he was losing his mind. Simultaneously saying, I killed the girls, I'm losing my mind, they focus on the part where he said, I killed the girls over and over and over again. He continued believing that he was already dead, that the world would blow up if he fell asleep, that water was poisoned, and that he was reliving the same day. Those things were not told to a jury. The day he's confessing, I killed those girls, he's also talking about how he's already dead. The world will blow up if he falls asleep. His water's poisoned. He's reliving the same day over and over again, and he's already dead. And that's not told to a jury. Just that lucid moment when he said, hey, I killed those girls. Dr. Walla listened to podcasts about Alan 3 hours a day while commuting to work. That's a super interesting thing, that Dr. Walla, the psychiatrist and psychologist who's going to be diagnosing him, is obsessed with true crime fiction stuff, or whatever you want to call it. Fucking, I'm not saying fiction. I did say fiction, but I didn't mean fiction. Listening to true crime. I don't know who's she listening to. Is she listening to people that presume his innocence, or listening to people that say he's guilty? But she's listening to hours and hours every single day of podcasts about Richard Allen and his guilt or innocence. I don't know. It doesn't say what she was listening to exactly. Before Allen was arrested, she researched a suspect in IDOC's database, and after she treated Allen, she posted on social media about his case. So before Allen was arrested, she researched a suspect related to this case, and after she treated Allen, she posted on social media about his case. Okay, so we're going to finish here with the witness. Maybe I'm trying to figure the time. So we're going through what the people didn't hear, and then we're going to hear what the jury actually heard. So we're hearing what they didn't hear, then we're going to hear what they actually heard. And maybe that's where we're going to end, what they actually heard. Beginning October 17th, 2024, the state tried Allen on 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of felony murder. During the 25-day trial, the state built its case against Allen on 7 points, what the jury actually heard. So now you've heard some of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, and there's much more. There's much more. We haven't even gotten into the alternate suspects and the pagan Norse religion, the Odinists, which I thought was nuts at first. It's not nuts. It's not nuts. I will cover it. If you guys are interested in this case, I will cover it in my interpretations of the Norse pagan Odinist religion. I will do that in another video if this kind of resonates with you at all. What the jury did here. The jury saw the video of the bridge guy on Libby's phone. They also heard from 2 of the 4 girls, Blair and Carbaugh. After seeing the video, the witnesses believe that they saw the bridge guy on February 13th. That's what they were told. That's what the jury saw. Blair thought she saw him on the platform of the bridge. She described the man as white, possibly 20s or 30s, with brown poofy hair and a youthful or boyish appearance. She also believes that she saw Abby and Libby approaching the bridge while the man was still on it. Blair's Fitbit data placed her near the bridge at the time of Libby's video. Although Carbaugh in 2017 reported seeing a muddy man in a tan coat walking west on 300 North, by the time the trial came, she claimed the man was muddy and bloody and wearing a blue jacket. Are you fucking... Originally, she said it was a muddy guy in a tan coat. By the time the trial comes, and what the jury heard is she saw a man with a blue coat that was muddy and bloody. After surveillance video captured, which again, the blue coat matches the blue coat that the jury was shown the video of a guy in a blue coat. This woman was brought in to say, I saw a guy with blood and mud on his blue coat, even though her initial statement in 2017 was a tan coat and mud, not blood. They completely changed her testimony, and that's what the jury heard. I want to make sure you catch it. The jury heard a version of her story that was not the original story. Also, surveillance video captured a car like Allen's driving on 300 North. The prosecutor argued that was Allen shortly before he parked and walked to the trail, and that Carbaugh saw Allen walking back to his car after committing the murders. At trial, no eyewitnesses were identified Allen as the bridge guy. The prosecutor, however, told the jury that Allen must be the bridge guy because every witness is, quote, adamant that the person they saw was the bridge guy. Listen, at trial, no eyewitnesses ever identified Allen as the bridge guy, but yet he told the jury that every witness was, quote, adamant that the person they saw was the bridge guy. But nobody was actually brought in to actually say that. He just said, hey, everybody that saw this said it was him. There is no doubt in their mind, he said. And Blair, according to the prosecutor, must have seen Allen right before the girls because Allen told us he went out on the Moon and Bridge on the first platform, which is exactly what Betsy Blair told you. Did I say Bestie earlier? Betsy Blair. All right. Trooper Harshman, who had listened to Alan's jail calls, believed that it was Alan's voice in the video. That was told to the jury. I think the voice that you hear in the background saying "You're down the hill, girls" is Alan's voice, and that's my expert opinion. That's what the jury heard. The bullet. The jury heard from a battle of firearms experts over the bullet. For the state, Oberg testified that when she matched test firings from Alan's gun to the unspent casing at the murder scene, she applied the Association of Firearms and Tool Markings Examiners, AFTE, methodology. She gave an error rate for her methodology of 2.2% for false positives and 2.87% for false negatives. She discussed studies and articles that she reviewed to apply this methodology. Oberg admitted that the AFTE methodology is subjective, but she testified that in her 17 years of applying it, she was unaware of ever having made a mistake in identification. During closing, the prosecutor told the jury that she has never been wrong. So that's what the jury heard. For the defense, Eric Warren, an expert in applying the AFTE methodology, testified that comparing tool marks on an unspent cartridge with tool marks on spent case firings is akin to comparing apples to oranges. And in his opinion, there was insufficient agreement on the tool marks to match Alan's gun with the unspent casings found at the murder scene. So the jury did get to hear that somebody disagreed with the reliability of the test firing, but they didn't listen to him apparently and convicted on all accounts. Timeline. I think we're getting close. I don't want to scroll all the way down to find it and come back, but timeline. Christopher Cecil testified regarding the movement and health data on Libby's phone. The girls encountered Bridge Guy at 2:13 p.m. and Libby's phone stopped registering movement at 2:32 p.m. He summarized the movement data as follows. At 1:31 p.m. to 2:08 p.m., there was 1,682 steps walked. At 2:08 p.m. to 2:18 p.m., there was 414.38 meters walked. Between 2:25 and 2:32 p.m., 2 flights were climbed and a final movement was recorded. The state argued that this activity overlapped with Alan being on the trail and Alan completing the murders and then leaving the scene by 3:56 p.m., where he was seen by Carbaugh walking on 300 North with that tan or blue, bloody, muddy jacket that changes throughout the testimony. Alan contested this timeline. So Richard Allen, his defense, contested this timeline through Stacey Eldridge, a former FBI forensics analyst. She testified that someone inserted a wire headphone or an auxiliary cable into Libby's phone at 5:45 p.m. and removed it at 10:32 p.m. This would silence the phone, and she noted that an incoming phone call occurred moments before the headphones or aux cables were plugged into the phone, which would have silenced the call. Why is this important? What she's suggesting, what an FBI forensics analyst is suggesting, is that after the murders, if I'm reading this right, that the FBI forensic analyst after the murders is testifying, the phone rang. One of the girls' phones rang after they were killed at 5-ish. The girls were supposed to be killed sometime around 2:30-ish, right? Or maybe 3 o'clock. So hours after they were killed, one of the girls' phones starts ringing and somebody pushes a headphone jack into the phone to silence the phone and then removes that headphone jack hours later, is what it sounds like she's saying. Which would lead to problems because Richard Allen is long gone and couldn't be there to be plugging the headphone, a headphone into that girl's phone and taking it back out. But in response to Eldridge's testimony, the state asked Cecil whether water could have been responsible for the findings. Over a hearsay objection, meaning that she gave an answer was given and they said, objection, hearsay. Cecil was allowed to testify that he Googled it during trial. So during the trial, I went on Google and some unspecified, non-peered reviewed troubleshooting forums reported that maybe water damage or dirt within the headphone socket could have mimicked the headphones being inserted. And that's what they went with. So it looks to me like somebody plugged in a headphone jack to silence a call. Well, I also did some Google search, and they say that maybe dirt or water in the the headphone jack could create the same situation. So that's what happened. Not that somebody plugged in a headphone jack or headphone to the phone. All right, we're going to wrap this up here. Again, we've got lots more to cover, but not today, or not in this video. When the state arrested Allen, it had no explanation for the murders. When the state arrested Allen, it had no explanation for the murders. However, the state argued that once placed in solitary confinement, Allen confessed to the crime and a motive. While gravely disabled, Allen confessed to the guards, Dr. Walla, and his family. On May 3rd, he told Dr. Walla that he was going to rape these girls, but panicked and killed them. He said they were screaming. The prosecutor argued that the jury should believe Allen's confession despite his psychosis. Relying on the opinions of Dr. Walla, the guards, and Trooper Harshman, who had reviewed Allen's videos and calls, the prosecutor claimed that Allen's confessions were logical and organized, and the product of a free will and his newly found religion. He found Jesus, or whatever, and so therefore you can believe everything he says now. And now he says he killed him. So you should trust him. Almost every guard testified that Allen's bizarre behavior was orchestrated and not the product of mental illness. Yeah, we were pretty sure he's faking all that shit, eating his own poop, jerking off in front of people, all that stuff. That's just mental. That was him putting on a show. None of it, despite being diagnosed with psychosis and all these other things, none of it was actual psychosis. It was him putting on a show. One guard said that he knew Allen was truthful in his confession because of the look in his eye. I could tell when he said, "I killed those girls," that he was telling the truth. That was allowed to be told to a jury. I could tell by the look in his eye that when he said he killed those girls, he meant it. Some guards claimed that inmates commonly smear or eat feces as a tool for attention. Hey, people eat their shit all the time in prison. That's what they do for attention. He's just starving for attention, not psychosis. None of the mental health professionals, none of those guards who are giving testimonies about their opinions about whether he's got an issue are health professionals or knew Allen's mental health code. They didn't even know he had been diagnosed with major depressive disorder or brave psychosis or anything like that. They just, he's acting up. And they didn't know his mental condition at all. Each time Allen confessed to Dr. Walla, she said that he was not delusional, hallucinating, or psychotic. Although Allen expressed confusion and memory gaps, she suspected that he was feigning or acting bizarrely. On cross, she admitted that she may have been wrong and Allen might have been genuine. Within hindsight, she was on the fence. So in other words, the doctor said when the prosecution's asking her a question, yeah, he's totally sane and he's faking any ideas that he's insane or having a psychotic break. He's faking it. Then on cross-examination, they say, are you sure? And she's like, well, in hindsight, I'm on the fence. Maybe because what they probably did, I didn't read the transcript, they probably showed her signs of what psychosis looks like and says, isn't this what you saw? Yeah. So you're 100% sure he's faking and that's not consistent with signs of psychosis? Okay, in hindsight, I'm on the fence. Maybe he was showing clinical signs of psychosis. The state introduced 31 suicide observation reports containing Dr. Walla's opinions. She continued to find that Allen was non-psychotic while documenting paranoia. She continued to find he was non-psychotic while documenting in his notes paranoia, delusional thoughts, confusion about being dead, and self-injury. She at times labeled him as feigning for secondary gain. He's faking what his condition for some kind of personal gain. The day before he was deemed gravely disabled, a clinical diagnosis of being gravely disabled that she diagnosed, she wrote that he could be exaggerating or consciously deteriorating. He could be exaggerating or consciously deteriorating himself. When he ate feces, she called the behavior unclear. It's not clear if he's faking that or if he really is nutbaggish. Dr. Martin believed that Allen was psychotic. So that was the person who said, yeah, he definitely had a psychotic break. But in remission after a mid-April Haldol shot, he went into remission after a Haldol shot and back to baseline by May 2nd. So an expert said, yeah, he did get psychosis for a while, but he was given Haldol and he got completely better long enough to make that confession. Walla, he described psychotic symptoms, yet concluded that Allen was much improved. Like Dr. Walla, he described psychotic symptoms, which yet concluded that Allen was much improved. When either doctor acknowledged psychosis, they attributed it to factors other than solitary confinement. So they're not going to admit on the stand that they broke him in prison, that his solitary confinement factored into creating psychosis, which is a known thing to happen. Yes, I'm going to wrap up. I'm trying to get to the breaking point. Regarding Allen's phone call confessions, Trooper Harshman said that Allen's demeanor was calm and solemn, and he was not under duress or stress. He opined that Allen acted this way for attention. So again, when Allen's on the phone confessing about killing the kids, he's not under duress or stress. And anytime you see him doing weird shit, he's just doing it for attention. Allen called Dr. Westcott, a neuropsychologist, who opined that Allen entered IDOC with major depressive disorder and physically and mentally decompensated, showing early signs by December and March of becoming psychotic, April through June, with residual symptoms later. So yeah, we have somebody saying he shows clinical signs of going into a psychotic state. Allen's solitary confinement, sleep loss, starvation produced sensory deprivation, delirium, or psychosis. Dr. Westcott believed that Allen was psychotic or delusional or delirious when confessing to Dr. Walla. After reviewing all the records and videos and evaluating Allen for days, she found no evidence of malingering. So she said, I don't think he's faking at all. They had an expert come in. They had an expert come in and say, look, he had a psychotic break. I see nothing about faking. He's literally broken. Dr. Gracian, a psychiatrist experienced with solitary confinement cases, testified that such environments cause psychotic delirium, confusion, and disorientation. Delirious behavior often becomes grotesquely regressive, including smearing feces, regressive, like you're going back to like primal times, right? Including smearing feces, sexually acting out, self-harm, and suicide. On recovery, memory is often absent. He had no doubt that Allen was delirious and saw signs of false memory, common in delirium, where a belief evolves into a perceived recollection. So again, he's been told over and over again, you killed these girls, you killed these girls. He's digressing, his mind's digressing, he's going into a psychotic break. And when that happens, it's common for them to evolve perceptions into recollection. Oh, this is what I think happened. This is and so it must have happened. You start taking those false memories and making them real in your psychotic break, is how I'm rephrasing that. Some people will say, some people will say, I think I did it, and after a time start perceptualizing the event. The more someone tries to remember, the more concrete and distorted the memory becomes, like a game of telephone. So again, this is the technique that's used in interrogations. You did this, you did this. Why don't you just come clean? You did it. Think about it real hard. Try to remember what you were thinking when you did this. And then the more they do that, the more you start to anchor things. Well, I did feel a little agitated that day, so maybe I was agitated. Like they start anchoring feelings, and then you start having a false memory build in. All right. A detail only the killer would know, the murder scene. Oh, the murder scene's super long. All right. We're gonna hold because we've gone super long. And I realize we're ending at a really, really bad place because we're still in the middle of all the things what the jury did and didn't hear. But that murder scene is super fucking detailed and super long and super weird and gets into the whole Norse pagan religion shit. And if you're interested, and I am, I'm probably going to break it down whether you want me to or not. And if nobody listens because it's just too much. It's too much, and it's worth that whole pagan Norse shit. You need to hear it, and I'll record it whether you want to hear it or not. So for the time being, let me just rephrase this. In this case, it seems clear to me that during the entire time from his arrest Remember, he voluntarily came forward right off the bat and said, hey, this is what I saw that day. 5 years go by, 5.5 years go by, and there's no signs of him trying to cover anything up, cover his tracks, hide anything at all. He's going about his regular day. And then all of a sudden, 5.5 years later, they get a tip. They decide that this is their man. And then they start reworking witnesses to say they saw things that they didn't originally say they saw, to place him there. They get an arrest by telling a judge incorrect details about people's remembrance of what happened, so that the judge says, yeah, if that's what you've got, go get him. They get him, they fit all the data to go there. They put him in solitary confinement with major mental depressive disorder. They break him mentally to the point that he's psychotic and eating his own poop and talking about being God, thinking he's already dead, and mumbling things about maybe I killed those girls. And when he does that, that's the part the jury hears. I killed those girls. I must have done it. And that's how they convicted him. If you're paying attention, you should be pissed. You should be pissed. I will continue with my analysis with part 2. Thanks.